Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Today I'm going to do something with a big faceted stone. I have this great big rectangular cut faceted orange synthetic sapphire. And I bought two of them and I made something out of one of them a long time ago, but here, this is the other one. So I thought I'd make a big pretty ring today. It's definitely one of those stones that's going to be an attention grabber, being orange and also very sparkly. And so I think it should be a fun one. We'll make kind of a cocktail ring out of it. I'm going to do kind of a pass-through design on the band, and we'll be building a prong setting for it. So it's going to have 8 little prongs to deal with the sharp corners on it. But before we start doing that, I'd like to thank some groups of people. My first group is my patrons over on Patreon. They are a marvelous group of people who not only financially support me, but have created this really nice environment over there where there's a lot of exchange of information and ideas and resources, and I do truly appreciate that as well. So thank you for all of your contributions. My YouTube subscribers, we just passed, I think we're about at 23,100, which is awesome. Thank you for that. I really love the comments when people tell me that I've helped them to get out of a slump, or I've in some way inspired them to do something, and that's kind of what my goal is here. So it's nice to hear those things, so thank you for that. I do also appreciate the nice contributions. The buy me a coffees, a super thanks, people who buy my merch or my ebooks, that stuff really helps to keep my channel going, and I couldn't do it without your help, so thank you for that. Alright, well, let's get started on this project. This is one of my design idea sketchbooks that you can get on my merch store. I like them because they provide a place for me to keep track of my projects, and I can always go back and revisit those if I want to figure out how I did them in the first place. But I've made so much stuff anymore, I don't remember exactly how I did everything. But I filled up 3 or 4 of these now. No, probably 4 or 5 of them now. And I find them really useful. They got this nice dot matrix in the background, which helps me to keep things more symmetrical, since freehand drawing isn't my strongest suit. So get yourself one of these. While we're at it, let me tell you about the sale. So up through September 1st, Labor Day, we're having a Labor Day sale in my merch store. So if you're interested, everything's 15% off. And I have some cool stuff like these design idea sketchbooks with the dot matrix in them, and the various different pieces of information on them. Saw blade stuff, melting temperatures, ring size formulas. You know. This one's just pretty. Oh, this does have silver solder temperatures, flow temperatures and things. But lots of different varieties of those. There's magnets you can put on your tool chest that have important silversmithing information of various types. You get these nice mugs. These ones have the dog and I'm creative after coffee. And these are the nice, there's 3 different sizes. This is the biggest size, the 20 ounce, I think. I like big mugs when I'm drinking coffee. So this one has one of our cats on it, and it has the same message. This is a new one. It's got the silver symbol from the periodic table of the elements. It says artist goals, and it has growth, talent, skills, passion, and art. It's also 15% off on my ebooks, of which there are 2. There's my 2023 tutorial guide and 2024 tutorial guide, both of which give you access to a whole bunch of videos along with extra information about them. So you're accessing my YouTube videos, but each one has a materials list, pictures of the project, pictures of the sketch I drew beforehand, notes that I took on the project about whether I thought it was a good project, an easy project, a hard project, whether I would do it differently, and all that kind of stuff. So get yourself some merch. It's a good time if you've been planning to get some. It's 15% off right now through Labor Day, and it's a great way to support my channel. So thanks. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about what we're doing here. Remember I said I had a great big orange synthetic sapphire? Here it is. And I think it's really pretty, honestly. I kind of like orange, but it's definitely going to be an attention grabber on the back of your hand. So it's about 16 by 12 when I measured it. It's not a traditional emerald cut, but it's got a really pretty flashy cut, so I like it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make kind of a simple prong setting with 8 prongs, 2 on each corner. Given the really sharp corners here, I think that'll work best for this one. It's going to be 2 tiers. It's going to have a bottom rectangle that's going to be down below the stone, and a rectangle that's going to be right underneath the girdle of the stone, which is the midpoint of it there. And then the prongs will stick up above that. So we'll make those squares out of 14 gauge square wire, which is 1.6 millimeters. I'm going to make the prongs out of 16 gauge round wire, which is 1.3 millimeters. The band itself is going to be kind of like this. I did a little prototype with copper just to see if I could make it work. And then I just kind of traced it. And this brings us to about a size 9, I think, if I remember, which is fine. But this tab will go through this slot here, and then we'll use these to hook onto the setting after we build it and then solder it all together. So I think it'll be a fun piece. It's definitely sitting up like that going to get a lot of light, so it should be a stunner, I think. To start with, I think let's make the setting. And if you've never made a prong setting, it's not too hard to do this sort, I don't think. I think what I'll probably start with is making the top rectangle here. I did 2 of the pieces to start with, just so I could get the measurements right. So, and I'm using my miter vise jig, which is this little device allows you to do nice 45-degree angles, so it'll make it easier to make kind of a pretty symmetrical 90-degree angle bit here. And these are going to be like that, except all the way around. We'll solder them together, and then we're going to put those prongs on the outside edge. So we'll also be cutting kind of a seat for the stone to sit down a little bit in there. Probably use a ball burr and then use maybe a diamond burr to smooth it out. But you can see I took these ends just about right to the corners of the stone like that, and that should be about right for what we're doing. Same way on this side over here. I like that. So I'm going to use these as a guide to measure the other 2 for this one, and then I'm going to make a second one of these rectangles just exactly the way I'm making this one, but it's going to be just about fit perfectly inside of there. So, but let's find some square wire here, 14 gauge, and I'm going to just snip off this little double cut here. I didn't know about these miter vise jigs until a couple of years ago. Nobody bothered to ever tell me about these. I don't get out much, apparently. I don't know how long they've been around, but they do make it easier to cut nice, precise angles. They make a better model with a 60 and 30 degree thing too. This one's got 45 and then just 90, but there's a third slot on some nicer ones that I do 60-30s. So, so before we do this though, actually, let's talk about my process here and a couple of things that people ask me about all the time. I use hard silver sheet solder for most things. I may use a little bit of paste solder now and again, but it looks like that. I use a liquid flux that I dribble on with a dropper bottle. My torch is a Silversmith model. It's a acetylene air model where it draws in atmospheric air to mix with the gas to produce a nice hot flame. Not as hot as oxyacetylene because it's not pumping directly into the flame pure oxygen. So those ones produce like 6,500 degrees or something like this. This is somewhere hotter than a propane or a butane torch, but not as hot as that. So it's perfect for silver as far as I'm concerned. And I use the #1 tip. So, all right. So let's find this. We got this fed into here. And if there's a question I didn't answer when I was talking about the things that people ask me about all the time, feel free to leave it in the comments. I do answer all my comments. Now, if you tell all your friends and get me to 1 million subscribers, it may be harder to answer all my comments. But it seems like a challenge that I'm willing to try. Okay, so I'm going to use this one as a guide to cut the second one. Sometimes when I'm trying to get a real precise measurement, boy, this is not sitting flat, so it's causing me problems. I use a marker. I got this end lined up. Let's make a mark on this one I'm going to cut. And then make a scratch. And the angle's not going to be right, but I need to at least direct which way that angle is going to go. And so we can feed it into the miter vise jig and then know to line that up right with the edge so we can get it pretty close. So. See that or not, but I got it right up to that mark now. We'll just tighten this down. Okay, now let's check and see how close we are. I think it's just a tiny bit longer. I'm going to do it just a tiny bit more, or have it sticking out just a skosh more, and take out just a little bit. What's your favorite indeterminate unit? I seem to use skosh a lot. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's do one of these now. Okay, how did I lose a square wire that fast? Can't seem to... That looks pretty good. Okay, let's solder that one together. One thing I like about these honeycomb pads, they do have a nice flat surface, which is kind of handy. Some of these other pads get bumpy over time because of solder on them or flux on them. They just get beat up and stuff sticks to them and you pull out part of the pad and things. So if you want, you can just lay it on there like that, but I have a tendency to pick solder because that's the easiest way for me. So I'll be picking it up on a pick, heating it up to the solder flow point, and then touching it there. So if you're interested in learning how to do that, I'll put a link right there. It's a super useful skill, and one of those things that really upped my game when I was learning how to do this kind of stuff. It opens up a lot of possibilities for soldering things much more easily. We'll just pick that guy up here. Okay. The trick is not sticking it in there too soon. You want it to just jump right on there. It moved on me a little bit, so I'm going to check the angle. I was afraid I threw them on the floor or something. I always do that. That's pretty close. Let's flux that and do the same thing. That's what happens when you have it almost where you want it and then you decide to try and fix it a little bit. That's pretty good. I'm going to do a little cleanup filing. That already sits pretty low in there, but we're going to, like I said, I'll do a taper kind of going down at about probably a 60-degree angle. Maybe a 45, I don't know. No, it's steeper than 45. I think it's about a 60. So we'll taper it down there, but before I do that, I'm going to make one that fits almost inside of there. So I'll be right back. Okay, so here's that smaller one I made. Almost fits in there. And I made some marks on this because I want to put some grooves on here. And I'm going to put these like this and solder them to that. Probably not at that steep of an angle, but about like that on each corner. And then we'll add this top piece in and solder it further up once we have it positioned right. But let's go over and use my Dremel with a ball burr and cut some little grooves there. Sorry about the messy area here. Alright, let's go see how that looks. I've got these poked into this softer pad, and this is a Cool Tools kiln block, I think. You can use a magnesia block, or you could use some of that clay and hold things in place. You know, thinking about it now, it would be better to flip these over and stick them in the other way, I think. So I'm going to bend these outward gradually until this sits down closer to that and sits straight up and down. I'm looking at it from all different angles now. I'm trying to use the prongs to kind of hold it in place. I want to make sure it's parallel with the other one. And that looks pretty good. So let's see if we can solder those in there. I'm going to use a little bit of, I think this time let's use some medium paste solder. This kind of thing I always double check on the solder joints to make sure we have a good connection. That looks alright. I said I'll do a kind of a seat in there for the stone to sit down a little deeper. We certainly don't need to leave these prongs this long. Okay, so let's go over and use the Dremel to kind of seat in there. Okay, so I got a seat cut in there. Let's stick this in there. See how it sits down there a little bit nicer? Okay. Yeah, that's going to sit just fine in there, I think. So at this point, if we want, we can just cut these bottom pieces off. So that, I think I'm just going to throw in the pickle for a few. And let's cut out that piece of sheet. I think what I'll probably do is cut the rectangle out with the shears. And then we'll use the saw to cut out the little pieces. I get asked about these shears a lot. These are just Fiskars craft shears. They're pretty widely available. Hobby stores and things. So I'm cutting 18 gauge sheet with these, which is really beyond what they're supposed to be used for, I think. So they will wear out much more quickly if you do that kind of stuff. I'd rather buy a new pair now and again than struggle with some of the other cutters I've tried in the past. Alright, let's go saw that out. Okay, we'll get it started in one of these slots here. Okay, well, I'm going to clean it up with the file a little bit. Okay, I think I got them about the right width and everything, and I kind of cleaned them up a little bit with the file. So let's wrap this around a mandrel. I think I'm going to just kind of solder it right there and there so it doesn't move anymore. And then we'll worry about figuring out a way to attach the prongs. There's quite a bit of mass in this band, so it's going to take some heating to get it up to soldering temperature. It's also on a third hand, which soaks up a lot of heat too, so it may take a little bit longer than usual. These are going to be underneath the setting, kind of, once I get this on there.
And so I'm going to do a little bit of pre-polishing on there to make sure it's, you know, because I'm not going to be able to get in there very easily with anything later on. So I'll be right back. Okay, my setting isn't perfectly symmetrical, so I'm going to try and situate it so it looks more symmetrical. And I think let's put some easy solder this time. And try and get it kind of positioned where I want it. It's pretty close. Well, let's give that a try and see how it turns out. What's the worst thing that can happen? Looks like a radar dish right now. Okay, we got a good solder joint on there. Alright. So I think I'm just going to cut it off right about where it meets the bottom there. It looks like it's on there okay. And then let it pickle. Maybe fix my wife a little dinner. Well, we'll see. But yeah, I'm going to cut it off right along there. I'll be right back after it pickles. So we got everything kind of cleaned up, polished up. So let's pop that in there. Make sure we got it out of the way. That looks good. I did cut these prongs to be about the same length. I may have gotten this one a little short, so I may have to cut them all a little bit shorter. But either way, I'm just going to use my my chain nose pliers, the flat side here, and start pushing those prongs down over. If you need to secure it when you're doing this step, that's okay, using a ring vise or whatever. I'm really trying to make sure that those points are pointing down into the stone so I don't catch on anything too much. And that's kind of what I was shooting for. Alright, well, tell me what you think. Tell me if you think that's blingy enough. I think it came out okay. I could have done a little bit better on the prong setting. It's not, you know, as straight as I have done in the past. I've occasionally had it, you know, hit it out of the park. This one, I did okay. So, give myself a B+. I think that's an okay ring. I think someone will love that. You know, when you absolutely need to be the center of attention in a room. Alright, I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. Okay, well that was the large orange sapphire pass-through ring. I'm not sure what I'm going to call that, but for now that's what we're going to call it. I hope you enjoyed that project. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. And I would love it if you would go over to my main channel page on YouTube here and check out some of my other videos. I have 530 or so at last I checked. I do 3 per week, one on Tuesdays, one on Thursdays, and one on Saturday mornings. So after 3.5 years, it's built up quite a big pile of content, and I think some of it's really quite valuable. So check it out, find a few projects, maybe a few tips on things, and have some fun with it. But I'd love to have you subscribe as well, so hit the subscribe button while you're thinking of it. And don't forget to hit the video description down below also. There's links to all of those important things that I talked about. My Patreon, if you want to find out more about that cool community. you can get the lowest membership of Patreon, just gets rid of all the YouTube videos, and that's kind of nice. So if you want to support me and not have to deal with the annoying YouTube advertisements, that's kind of nice. And there's other tiers of membership as well, which you get more benefits from. So there's a link to my merch store and my ebooks. And those things, like I said earlier, are at 15% off through Labor Day 2025. And if not, there's still valid links, but the sale will be over at that point. So get yourself something nice. Come back and see me again. And thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.